Hi there, it's Tracy Kiernan from stepbysteppainting.net, and this tutorial will show you how to paint a school bus along a path with fall trees with acrylics on canvas. This is a painting you can customize. You can put different numbers on the license plate. You can change the letters up, and we are going to go ahead and get started. So I'm using a 11 by 14 inch canvas, and the first thing I'm going to do, because this is a landscape style painting, is define my horizon line. So that's the line that divides where the sky and the land is going to be. I'm going to measure about 6 1/4 inches. You could round down to 6 inches if you want to simplify that a bit. But 6 inches, 6.25 inches from the top of the canvas down is where I'm going to draw this horizontal line. So I'm using just a T-square ruler to draw that horizontal line across the canvas. Then we're going to paint the sky, so that's above the horizon line. I have two colors on my palette, Cerulean Blue and Titanium White. I'm using a 3/4 inch flat wash brush. So I'm going to load it in the water, tap it dry, and I'm going to double load. That means that I'm going to load in both white and blue, so about equal amounts to start out with. So grab a chunk of white, grab a chunk of blue, blend it together. I don't like to mix my colors all the way on the palette. I just kind of leave it a little bit unmixed. We're going to start at the top. So you can do left and right horizontal strokes if you want, but I'm going to do more textured strokes in this because it seems sometimes it's a little bit more fun to do it this way, to blend it so it's not all exactly the same shade of blue. But this sky is a tiny bit lighter towards the bottom, as in we're going to gradually introduce more white and blend that in as we go to the horizon line. So I'm doing angular strokes, blending that blue and white, and I'm just going to keep going down. So I'm going to grab some more white, start below that, and then blend it back up. And like I said earlier, if you want to do strokes going in a horizontal direction all the way across the canvas, you can. You can even absolutely simplify this by painting the sky just one solid shade of blue without worrying about the blending. There's a lot of simplifications that can be done with this painting. And so I am gradually adding more white to it. The video's speeding up just a tad here, but press pause if you need to. Take your time. Blending that white down to the horizon line. I'm not going to paint below the horizon line, so that sky is lighter towards the bottom and it's a tad darker at the top. Another thing is this is a very thin layer of paint. If it doesn't seem to be flowing well, you can add a tad bit of water to your brush, and that tends to get the paint to flow just a little bit better. So just go right there to your horizon line and stop. If you accidentally paint a little bit under the horizon line, that's fine. Just don't leave any gaps above that line. So then we're going to introduce our ground in this painting. So this is kind of it's a pathway painting. So we have grass and we have a path. And I'm going to define our path / road. It's actually a road, and our road is 9 inches wide at the bottom. So I'm just going to take my ruler here and mark 9 inches. So I'm just going to find, and you don't have to have it exactly center. So just take your ruler, mark 9 inches towards the bottom of the canvas. So that's as wide as the road is on the bottom. And then you want to take your pencil and lightly sketch. And I also recommend just grabbing a ruler just to make those lines straight. Lightly sketch your diagonal lines, but they don't have to go to a point. In fact, they won't go to a point if they're at that angle. But the bus is going to be covering, so we're not going to see all the road anyway. Okay, so then we're going to go ahead and paint the grass that's on the outside of the road next. And our grass consists of 3 different colors. We have Hooker's Green Hue Permanent, Cad Yellow Medium Hue, and Titanium White. So green, yellow, white. You don't have those colors, you can use any green, any yellow, and any white. So I'm going to get my big old 3/4 flat wash all rinsed off and dried, and I'm going to make a light pretty yellow green color by grabbing a little bit of that dark green, a little bit of white, a little bit of yellow, And so our grass is very similar to how I did the sky in the sense that the strokes are kind of going angular and textured, but our grass is going to be lighter in the distance and it's going to get darker as we go to the bottom of the canvas. And I use the tip of my brush to define that horizon line. If your horizon line isn't straight and turns into more of a hill, that's okay. There's a lot of imperfections in this painting, so you don't have to worry about it being perfect. But my grass is going to shift colors down here. I'm going to gradually add some more yellow into that grass, a little bit of white, blend it. It doesn't have to blend all the way. It doesn't have to blend perfectly. Just get your grass to be gradually darker, not lighter, gradually darker as you work your way down. So that means that I'm going to be adding more of that green and less of that yellow and the white. So more of that Hooker's Green Hue Permanent, that dark green, and I'm just painting textured strokes. So I'm kind of painting little X's and blending back up, and see, like right there, my turned into a hill right there, little hill above the horizon line in the upper left, upper right. That's okay. So just keep adding your green, blending it back up into your lighter spring green color, and the textured strokes gives that field or that grassy area a bit of grass texture. And so if you wanted to simplify this, again, you can absolutely, stumbling over my words today, absolutely paint your grass the same shade of green all throughout. And that's a way you can simplify the painting if you don't want to worry about the blending. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to load a little bit more of that green. I'm going to add just a touch more on the bottom, just to add just a bit of darkness right there on the bottom and blend it back up. Don't want to mess up my lighter green colors. Also add some more texture in that area. So just little X-style strokes, blending that green back up into your lighter green. And it's okay also, so I painted over my road a little bit. When we paint the road next, we'll redefine that area some more. So what we're going to do next is the road, and I am not going to paint the entire road because our bus is going to be covering a little more than half of that road. So we're going to load our palette with Mars Black, freshen up some titanium white if you need to, rinse your 3/4 flat wash brush and dry it. And this road is a mix of black and white, so kind of a dark gray. So I grabbed about equal amounts of black and white and kind of brushed it out on my palette a little bit. And I'm just going to let that black and white blend themselves and do their own thing here. But I'm painting using the full width of my brush, and I'm just kind of stroking that black and white, letting them kind of blend together. Use the tip of my brush to define the sides of the road. So those are nice and straight lines on the side of the road. And I'm just kind of dragging my brush at an angle. So you can see how the angle changes with the road. It goes to the angle to the side on the right and then on the left, and it kind of goes vertical up. And like I said, I'm not going to be painting the entire road. You want to go a little more than halfway up just to be safe. But our bus is going to be covering a big portion of this middle part of the road. So we don't really need to paint the entire road. If you want to paint the entire road, you can. So this bus is going to be very large and take up a very large area. And so just make sure though the bottom part is nice and covered. And then next we're going to be drawing the bus, and you'll need to let that dry entirely before going on to this step. So press pause and come back. The first thing I'm going to do to draw this bus is mark the height of the bus. So the height of the bus from the top to the bottom of the wheels is about 8.25 inches. So in the middle of the road, I'm going to measure 8.25 and make a little mark at the top and a little mark at the bottom. The top of the bus is a curved shape, so I gently sketched a curved shape on both sides of that line, but I want to measure to make sure it's wide enough. So 6 inches is the width of our bust. I'm going to take my ruler and make marks at the 6-inch mark on both sides, and I'm just going to take my pencil and sketch a curved line. So that curved line is 6 inches wide. And then, so I'm just going to sketch it. It's a curve. And then on both sides of the curve, we have 2 vertical lines that go straight down. But they're not going to go straight down to the mark that we made, because that mark is the bottom of our wheel. So they're going to go straight down, but not all the way down. And then I want this top piece to be more like a semicircle. So I'm going to draw a horizontal line. It's about not quite 2 inches, maybe 1 inch and 3/4 down. But that is going to define that top part of the bus where it says school bus, and we have those gray triangles if you look at the final picture of that. And I'm just erasing this piece right here because I did multiple lines. I'm just kind of erasing and redefining that line. Then I'm going to define the bottom horizontal line of our bus. So I'm going to get my ruler back and measure about 4.5 inches and sketch a horizontal line. So that's a first horizontal line that's just above our bumper. And then I'll use my T-square to make that horizontal. So that's 4.5 inches right there. The bumper is a little less than 1 inch, so we can just kind of gently sketch our bumper here. If you want to measure a little less than 1 inch, you can, but it doesn't have to be exact. So 1 inch might be too big, but a little less than 1 inch is okay. So I know you can't see this part right here, and I'm going to grab a white chalk pencil here in a second to go over that part of the drawing. But it's just, if you look at the finished version of the bust, it's just a long rectangle that's got curves on both sides. So that's the bumper. And then under our bumper, we have the wheels. So your wheels pretty much go to that initial little mark we made. But here's the chalk pencil. So here's our bumper. It's like a rectangle, and the sides are curved. And I always say this when we do our drawings, they can always change when we paint it in. And so we have our wheels. The wheels you can just sketch if you want to use the ruler to help make it straight, you can, but just 2 wheels. I guess the width is about 1 inch wide for the wheels, but I did use my T-square to make sure the bottom part of the wheels are lined up so they're not uneven. So I'm just taking my chalk pencil and going over this part right here that's kind of dark for that pencil to show up. So there's our basic bust drawing. I'm going to add just a few more line details in it. You don't necessarily have to do that because it's all going to be painted over, but it's kind of nice to see where we're going with this. So at the top here, our bust is going to have these 2 diagonal lines. And then down the middle, we're going to have the vertical line. So that's that piece that has the 2 windows and it says stop. And so you don't have to do that, but that just kind of gives you an indication of where we're going. But now that our bust is all drawn in, we're going to go ahead and white it out. Because if we painted it yellow, that yellow is going to show through and it's going to be a see-through bust. We don't want it to be a see-through bust. We want it to be solid. So we're going to white out the area with titanium white. And I'm using a number 12 bright brush. You can use any flat brush for this. If you wanted to even use your 3/4 flat brush, you can. That brush we used for the sky and the road and the grass, you can use that. But I just grabbed a smaller one because we have some smaller areas in here. But basically, I'm painting that large shape of our bust with that curve and that big square shape. And I'm going to do that all solid white. You want to get it pretty solid because if we leave a lot of that dark, like if you painted the road all the way up, you really want to make sure that that's all covered because we don't want to see grass through our bus or sky or any of that road. So nice and solid. And you only need 1 coat, so you don't need to do 2 coats unless your white's not giving good coverage. Then you may want to do a 2nd coat. You do the bumper as well. So with the bumper, you have kind of a curve thing going on. If you want to switch to a round brush to help you with that curve, you can. I'm just going to do it with this brush. And the wheels, I did not paint the wheels white. Mars Black is a very dark, strong color, so we don't need to white out the wheels first. There's a little bit of grass showing through here. I can add maybe another coat in that area, but it should be fine when we go and do our yellow. It should be enough coverage for that. You'll want to go ahead and dry your painting or take a break and come back and then erase any pencil lines that you have left over from the drawing part. That's what I'm doing right here. And again, the white part is dry and we're going to, so after you erase, we're actually going to paint our bus yellow next. So we whited out our bus and now we're going to do yellow. Load your palette with Cad Yellow Medium Hue, and you're going to need a little bit of red, so I'll be using Cad Red Medium Hue. The little bit of red just gives our yellow some more color variation, a little bit that's got some orange tones in it. But I'm going to start with the yellow, so I'm using that same 12 bright brush. Here's my red I was talking about. So again, simplifying this painting would be just for this step, painting it all the same solid yellow and not worrying about blending, but I like to use different colors when I paint an object in. So I only grabbed a very, very small amount of red. We don't want our bus to turn orange unless you want an orange bus, but just a tad bit of red in there helps to get that color look kind of different and varied. And you can use your titanium white as well to help get the color to be kind of varied. So I am, at the top, my strokes are kind of curving, but then at the bottom, they're all going up and down vertically. So just kind of going in the direction of the shape and not over blending it because I want those kind of streaks in there. It gives the bus some character with those different colors in there. So just all up and down strokes using the full width of your brush. If you wanted to use that 3/4 flat brush for this step, you can. You don't have to use that 12 bright. You can use different brushes. And just going to add a little bit more white on my palette here. I like having this white kind of blend in here. So there's different variations in here. So some parts of the bus a little bit lighter, some of them blend to a little bit darker tones of that yellow. So just kind of keep it varied and unblended. I'm just taking that yellow and that white and just making sure everything is nice and covered on this bus, doing streaks of that light yellow in there, kind of blending it in with the rest of the yellow. Again, that color is varied all throughout on purpose. Next, I'm going to load my palette with Payne's Gray. If you don't have Payne's Gray, you can use Mars Black, but I selected this gray because it's a dark bluish gray and it'll stand out from the gray that's on the road. So something different, but I'm going to be painting the bumper next. So you can see that bumper is right up against the road for that color, but using this color is going to stand out and look a little bit different from the color that's in the road. So I'm going to double load my brush in the Payne's Gray and the white. Payne's Gray is a really strong color, so you only need a little bit of it, and the white. And I'm just going to do the same thing that I did with the yellow part of the bus, but paint it left and right horizontal, letting those colors blend gently together to give it an unblended look. And I'm going to be switching to a number 4 round brush here because we have some curves in the bumper and going to be a little bit trickier to get that all filled in. So get as much done with it with my flat brush, but see that curve right there? It might be a little bit tricky to get that curve. So if you grab, this is a number 4 round brush, and then we can get in there and really get that curve filled in. But I'm just going to fill in that bumper with that Payne's Gray and the white, left and right strokes, gently blending those colors together. Next, I'll be painting the wheels on the bus. So I'm going to get both these brushes rinsed off, but I'll be using my number 4 round brush for this and the Mars Black. So load it in the black and just paint that shape in using that round brush. So it's kind of a rectangular shape with the curved bottom to it. And I'm just going to fill both of those tires in solid black. And then I'm just going to loosely outline the bottom part of the bumper. So with the black, very, very thin black right there on the tip of my brush, holding that brush very lightly, and I'm loosely outlining that bumper. I'll be doing shadow next. So the shadow is a very watered down black. So grab a whole bunch of water and water your black down on your palette and make kind of a shadowy blob area underneath your wheels. The water should allow that black to be slightly lighter than the actual solid color of the wheels. So just kind of paint a shadowy area, and then I can take my finger and just kind of smear it a little bit into the rest of the street. Kind of blend it outwards. So it should just be very loose, very translucent because of that water. And then we have the shadow that kind of goes under the bus. So I'm just going to do some loose horizontal strokes that go from the bottom of the canvas and just under the rest of the bus up to that bumper. Again, this should not be dark or solid at all. It's a very watered down black, a watercolor consistency. So think if we were using black watercolor right now, very thin version of that watercolor so that it shows through and it just gives some indication of shadow in that area. Next, I'm going to do the white lines on our road. So this is just white using that little round brush, and I'm just doing 2 diagonal lines kind of offset from the edge of that road to goes to that bumper, and then it disappears behind that bus. Then I'm going to take what's left on my brush here, so I still have white on my brush, and I'm going to do texture on our tires. So I'm going to do diagonal lines going one way and diagonal lines going the other way. So that black from the tire is still wet, but that's okay, and it's blending gently with that white, and that is okay. So we don't need those white lines to be bright or solid. I wanted them to be gray. In fact, if your tires were dry, you can mix a light gray color and do light gray, but it's just diagonal lines going one way, diagonal lines going the other way, and it gives our tires some texture. Little highlight on the left and the right of the tire, and a little curved highlight on the bumper. There is an area between the wheels just under the bumper, another really thin gray rectangle if you look at the finished version of that, just under the tires. Very, very subtle detail. There's a lot of tiny details in this bus. That's why this painting takes quite a bit of time, because of all the details, but they're fun details and it gives our bus so much character. And like I said earlier in this video, you can customize a lot of these details as well. So there is the bottom part of our bus, and we're going to do the top part of our bus next. So I'm still using the round brush, and I have Payne's gray mixed with white to make that light, kind of a medium gray. And at the top, we have the triangles on the left and the right. So remember that horizontal line we drew in the beginning? Just kind of imagine or envision where that would be. So that would be the bottom of your little triangle. And of course, it's curved on the side and goes diagonal. So each of these triangles do not have to be exactly the same. I'm going to do another one on the other side here. So same color, the Payne's gray mixed with the white. And then same thing, Like I said, it does not have to be symmetrical. In fact, it gives our bust some fun character if it's not perfect and symmetrical. It doesn't even have to be straight on the bottom. So I'm just going to fill that in solid with that gray. Next, I'm going to take my black and I'm going to go ahead and outline. There's a rectangular area in the middle of the bust where the stop letters are, or the stop word is. So black for round brush, do your horizontal line. Again, not perfect. Don't worry about it being lined up perfectly. It gives your bust more character if it doesn't. But I will do this. I will use my T-square for these vertical lines because my vertical lines probably would have gone way more slanted than I want them to be. So, but I'm going to do a vertical line over here. So I'm just making a rectangular area. You can have it be kind of similar. Mine ended up being a little uneven, but again, that's okay. So another vertical line. Doesn't even have to line up right with your triangles at the top. Just have fun and relax. So, yep, you can see it's a little uneven. The one on the right, a little bit thinner than what I envisioned, but that's okay. It's going to look just fine. So then, another thing, we're going to do the windows. So there's 3 windows at the top. This one is more of a horizontal formed window, and the windows do not have corners, so the corners are curved. So imagine painting a rectangle with curved corners. And then I outlined the shape first, and I'm just going to paint it in solid black. Sometimes it helps to add a teeny bit of water to this black. It makes it flow a little bit better. Black tends to be kind of thick unless you add a touch of water into it. So there's our middle window, and then I'm going to do the next window. So the windows on the left and the right are more of a vertical shape because it's a thinner area to fill in. So do the shape, and then you want to fill it in solid. And then go ahead and do your other window. Again, don't worry about symmetry. Mine is far from symmetrical. And then next we have another window towards the bottom. So this window is just exactly the same as the one above it. So same size, same width. It's just on the bottom of our bus. Next, I'll be painting the little circle reflectors, and so I'm going to rinse my number 4 round brush and grab my titanium white. So I'm going to do 2 circles on the, actually 4 circles on the bottom, 2 on each side. So 2 over here, and then I'll be doing 2 on the other side. So small circles, and those will be painted orange and red after that white dries. So it's almost like I'm whiting it out first, so that orange and red color will stand out nice and bright. And then quick little highlight. Doing those fast white lines for the highlight gives our bust some fun character. Just a few loosely outlined white lines kind of on the inside of the shapes. And then I'm going to go ahead and do the little license plate. So a little rectangle in that area. And then if your black from the windows is dry, or even if it's not dry all the way, this should work. But I'm just going to do some reflection on that with the white. I'm going to very quickly do this very loosely, so this white is not super solid at all. I'm doing very loose diagonal lines going from one corner to the next. Again, it's not consistent. Some of those lines are brighter, some are not so bright, but it's going to give your windows some reflection. And then I'm going to do more reflectors at the top over those gray triangles. So 2 on each side for a total of 4 up here at the top. Same size as the reflectors that are below the bus or towards the bottom of the bus. Then I'm going to paint a red rectangle with the same brush over here at the top. So this is the Cad Red Medium Hue color, and the rectangle is about the same size as that license plate rectangle that we did at the bottom. Next, I will be painting the circles or the reflectors. So assuming that white is dry, even if it's not dry all the way, it should be fine. But one of them is red and the other is orange. So there's 2 red circles. And then to make orange, you want to mix red and yellow together, but you only need a teeny bit of red to make that orange and a lot of yellow. So like a 1:3 or a 1:4 proportion of red to yellow. And so the other reflector is orange. And then I'm going to do the same thing at the top. So one is orange and the other is red. Next, I'm going to do some more details in this reflector over here at the top. So black, little vertical lines. And I'll just loosely outline the perimeter of that rectangle. And I'll outline the license plate of, or the perimeter of the license plate. And then I'm going to loosely outline the side of the bus. By loosely, I mean that we're not doing a very thick continuous line. I'm holding that brush very lightly. The line is very loose and thin, and the consistency is not the same. So then I'm going to do the rear view mirrors on the bus, starting with, so this is still the black, still the number 4 round brush. I'm just going to make a tiny, well, I guess it's not tiny, kind of a small rectangle shape. And then I'm going to do a line that connects that rectangle to the side of the bus. So that line, I'm just going to add a dab of white to my brush and outline the perimeter of that rectangle with the white. There's black still on my brush, so that white is kind of loosely blending with that black. And then I'm just going to go out and down to connect our mirror to the bus. So there's the right one, and I'm just going to do the exact same thing over on the left. And then the same thing that I did with the windows, the little diagonal lines for the reflection, I'm going to do that on our mirrors as well. Next, I'm going to rinse and dry, and I'm going to add to the shape of the bus on the bottom. This is completely optional. It's another tiny detail that you can leave out, but I just decided to do this. So I extended the fender part of the bus here on the bottom. Kind of use my ruler to make sure that's lined up. So I did it in white first, and then when that white dries a little bit, I'll go back and add some yellow in there. So it just adds to that shape of the bus on the bottom. Lots of little details in this painting. Another little detail I'm going to do, and again, optional, this is a 5-0 round brush, so it's a really tiny round brush for these details, but I'm just going to do some little diagonal lines from the reflectors to make it look like our little reflectors are shining, blinking lights. Just little diagonal lines off the side of your circles. I'm going to do it on each of the circles, and they don't all have to be in the same place. You can do some that are kind of on the bottom. And then I'll do a little highlight on each of those circles, so just a little white curve. And then some more details on this reflector over here at the top, some little white vertical lines in there. And then I'll do some loose white outlining around that. Do some more loose outlines in a few other areas. And then over here, I'm just going to go back over this piece with some more yellow. And then I'm going to just have the word stop over here on the back of the bus. And I used a Sharpie for that. You can use a Sharpie or a paint pen, or you can just use a really small brush with black. You don't even have to put school bus or stop on this. You can leave it blank. You don't have to have stop. You can have it be a teacher's name. You can have it be a number. You can have it say whatever you want. You can even have it say how many days until school. Lots of creative directions you can go with this, but I'm just going to be basic about it and do the word stop. If you want to do stop on red, or some more details in that, like I said, this is up to you what you want to do. So this is just the Sharpie, and it does help to write it in pencil first to make sure your letters fit up. I'm not the greatest at lettering, so bear with me here. So I'm just doing stop, but again, the whole concept doesn't need to be perfect. Adds more character to our bus if our letters are kind of funky and not perfect. So we have stop. Then up here at the top, I'm going to do school bus. So I'm just going to lightly pencil this in to make sure it fits. It's such a small area, so my letters got a little bit cramped up here, but that's okay. And then I'll just go ahead and get my Sharpie back and do the school bus lettering over here at the top. So the final steps in this painting involve painting the trees. The trees are definitely optional. You can leave the trees out and do some other fun things around there. Maybe you can write some things up in the sky. But I'm going to demonstrate how I did the trees next. So I used Burnt Umber and Mars Black. Those are those two colors that I just loaded, so the brown and the black. I'm going to use a number 8 round brush dipped in the water, and I'm just going to gently mix the brown and the black together. It's going to make a very, very dark brown color. And so I'm not going to go super detailed in these trees because we already went super detailed in the brush or in the bus. And so too much detail is probably not necessary here. It's just a fun accent to the painting. So I'm going to do my large tree over here on the right first. So I like to start at the bottom for my trunk and have the bottom part of the trunk kind of flute out a little bit and do the roots. And then I wiggle my brush as I go up because the trunk is not exactly straight. It's wavy on the sides. So I'm kind of wiggling my brush as I go up, and those branches are going to divide into 2 directions. And then, so that splits up, and then I'm going to do this piece. So this number 8 round brush I like to use for tree branches because you can press harder to make a thicker line and then use the tip of the brush and kind of hold it lighter to create your thinner line. The branches get thinner as we go to the top. And so there's my basic tree trunk on the right, and I'm going to do the same thing on the left. So same kind of tree. Start at the bottom, the trunk of the trees kind of fluting out, the roots of the tree, and then the trunk a little bit wavy. And I'm going to go up, and the branches are going to split and grab some water to distribute into that. Tree branches are a lot easier to paint when your paint is flowing versus when it's dry and clumpy. So watering it down just a tad really helps to get that flow going. So with these smaller branches, I'm using just the tip of that brush, not pressing very hard. I'm holding it very loosely to create that thinner line, and it goes to a point. So there's our 2 trees, and you can stop here if you want, or you can continue to do more trees. So it's a perspective painting, so our trees would get smaller in the distance. So I'm just going to do the same thing, but only make this tree smaller and shorter. So there's our smaller tree, and then I'm going to do another smaller tree over here on the left. Same thing, same height as that one on the right. So do your branches that go up. That one got kind of thick. Maybe the branches are going behind some of the other trees. So we have some overlapping going on. And then I did one more tree over here on the left. So another smaller tree. And so there's my tree trunks. That's as many trees as I'm going to do. You can do more if you want. And then I'm going to demonstrate the fall leaves. Please press pause if you need to. I know this portion of the video is speeding up just a tad bit here. But I have red, yellow, and white on my palette. And I have my number 12 bright brush back. So when I do fall leaves, I like to start with a color. Load it in that red as I did, and I just flip-flop my brush, making short square style strokes in different angles, and I'm just putting them all throughout the branches, and then I'm just going to gradually add to that. So I grab yellow and I paint more yellow strokes. These are just little square strokes using the full width of the brush. The trees that are kind of in the back have some smaller leaves, so to make the smaller leaves you can just kind of use the corner of your brush to make smaller strokes. And then you can introduce white, so when you mix white with your yellow, it will make a brighter color, so it kind of brightens it up a little bit. So lots of different color variations in these leaves. If you want, you could just make them all red or all orange, but I like the color variation. It just makes it look really interesting and pretty. So you're just going to keep painting those leaves pretty much all around your branches, all over the place, until you are satisfied with as many leaves as you want in your trees. So it's a fall scene, and of course there would be leaves on the ground. So I'm just going to continue to paint little strokes of orange and red and white and yellow on the ground, and little bits of leaves that are on the left and right of the tire. Maybe some leaves are kind of blowing because the bus is driving by. So lots of fun different things you can do. If you want to even get into more details, you can paint some pumpkins on the side of the road, and maybe there's birds sitting in the branches. I don't know. There's so many creative things that you can do with this painting. So I'm just finishing up, adding those final touches of little pieces of leaves. There's a few last minute touch-ups that I want to do before I call this painting finished. I'm using the round brush to just kind of gently outline these shapes down here. Help to define it just a little bit more. And also our license plate needs a number, so you can do whatever bus number or whatever it could be a number that's significant to you. For some reason, I didn't grab the Sharpie for that. I just decided to be bold and use the round brush for this, but most certainly you can use a paint pen or a Sharpie for that. So whatever word or number you want down there. And then I loosely outlined some of these reflectors, not all the way, but just a little bit to kind of get them to pop. If there's anything else on your bus that you feel like you want to outline to let it kind of pop a little bit, you can. So many details with this, but pretty much our painting tutorial of how to paint this fun school bus is coming to its conclusion. I had a lot of fun with this design. It's I haven't done a back to school painting yet, so this is my first back to school style painting, so this was kind of a fun thing to do for back to school. I hope that you enjoyed painting a bus with me too. Thanks for watching.